Right. I wasn't nervous at all because I'm also an educator, and so the week has not allowed any nervousness to show up about tonight, but now I am. That's good. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. So the theme of gratitude. So this is about gratitude to my father specifically, but I don't never said this to him. He's never heard this. And my thought about anything that I do related to my family is that if I can spread the gratitude to the people that I see or any of you, right? And then it's like an invisible thread. The gratitude that I have for my father goes to you and it goes to the next person you go to. It's bigger than the one person that he is, but he's bigger than even that. But I'll just share. So I often introduce myself as Wazina Zondon, when really my name is Wazina Zondon. However, according to my computer's autocorrect, my name is better suited as Wanda London. On other days, webzine condom. Because really, webzine is easier to spell than Wazina. Or somehow my computer thinks it's an accurate alternative to what I meant to say. I like to imagine, though, as if I had actually grown up to become what the images around me said I was supposed to look like. After puberty ran its course, there she would emerge, waxing sundown, my bizarro twin. But tell me the truth, though. Am I being too hard on my smartphone? I just find it really hard to shrug off and shake off those little red corrective squiggles. You know, the ones that tell you there's something wrong here under my name. Like a microaggression, leaving my emotions in a swirl, leaving me wondering, am I being too sensitive? Am I reading too much into this? Oh, I know. Maybe they're trying to fit me into boundaries that most of us were never intended to fit into. So who can blame those corrective squiggles? And yet, as brown people, we learn to fit white people's names into our mouths. We stretch our lips wide, our tongues out. We make room. While our names have their eyes rolled at, they get butchered, shortened, too long surnames erased altogether, carrying generations with them. We split our tongues to fit right names, to blend best among the class rosters, anglicized versions of ourselves, wondering, worrying if our daughters, at her first roll call, will she remember her name? Because did you know it took years for me to learn the version of my name being called out by teachers, that it belonged to me, that I, Wazina, belong to Z as in Zondon, Z as in zebra, O-N-D-O-N. And I would always be the last one called. Sometimes I forget that before I was Wazina, I was an Ahmadzai, I was a Nizami. Zondon or Zondon only exists because my parents, my mom, my dad, Modad and Baba, decided to start their own path, to start their own last name within the walls of their marriage and their children, between the blood and the beat and the bones of our bodies, and a proud new line would come of their love. Afghanistan, Afghanistan. Nizami, my mother's maiden name, would be left to be remembered in the form of password hint questions. What city was your mother from? In what city was your father born? Things like that. As Zondons or Zwanduns in America, we could be ambiguous. Sometimes only given away by our accents. A couple of years ago, I began to make a few commitments to a couple of friends here and there that I will pronounce Wazina properly. I mean, why not, right? I travel in anti-racist progressive spaces after all. and I find great charge in the interrupting and the continuous bleaching of my tongue, and then I don't. I return to that classic move, oh, Zondon, Zondon, however you want to pronounce it. There's no joie in English after all. And then later, Alyssa, my white best friend, reminds me, Wazina, your name isn't Wazina. Wazina. There's no question mark at the end of your name. It's Wazina. It's Wazina. The desire to create a palatable version of myself and our names is becoming really grating to me. It's like eating a meal that is missing an essential masala or spice. It reminds me of my relationship to garlic salt. And as much as I love you, garlic salt, you don't quite cut it as a replacement spice for cardamom, for cumin, for dill. God, how I love dill. For coriander, for turmeric, garlic salt. Sometimes you're like a Joe instead of a Jose. The crafting of a Gina from Sangina, a Mo from Mohammed, Naz from Nazanin, and my least favorite of all, calling somebody fatty when her name is actually Fatima. Fast forward some more to the most recent years, and my adulthood has taken a new turn, and I have an extra job in addition to my 40 hours a week teaching job. And on some mornings, Saturday mornings, after teaching all week long, much like my parents do, and working, I only have Sundays for my bodies to recoup. But over these first mornings that I can think of in the Saturdays after a training and a conference room, I find myself debating what to do with a tray of pastries, leftovers from this conference. And I wonder, and then I think, and I look at this tray, and all I can see is Gouda, and all I can think of is Gouda, like Gouda cheese. And in the ways that only memories can explain, all I can think of is the moments and the time when Baba, my father, would bring home cheese and crackers, leftovers from work parties while we were growing up. When Baba would go to work, I would call him at work, and my instincts urged me to ask for Baba or my dad on the phone. But instead, we have to ask for Don, because Don is what the guys at the office have started to call him. Don as in Don Zondon. You see, at work, Baba isn't Baba at all anymore. His accent after all these years is gone, and Baba's name is actually Nematullah. And Baba means miracle from God. Nematullah means miracle from God. But he's begun to blend in with the rest of Midtown Manhattan. And I stand there with my breath stuck in my chest, inside my tears, with this pastry tray still in front of me. And I begin to cringe at how my father, Baba, my co-conspirator, my co-creator, Zondon of Zondon, could forget, could give in, and become this version of new selves we never wanted to become in the first place. And I try hard not to unzip what we cannot zip back up. And I promise to myself and those autocorrect squiggles that I will never, ever betray my father tongue, because Zabana Babem Echwach Gunganamesha.